Welcome back to Post Trauma. This is part 3 of our trophy guide and walkthrough, and we're starting at the beginning of Act 3. So once you exit out of that weird fleshy hole, just walk forward. There's sort of a path. Keep on going. We're going to pass by this little memorial, and you can stop and take a look at it. We are about to meet a girl who looks very similar to the one that is here, but we're going to find more about that story later. Head over to this archway made out of bushes, and we're going to come up on a statue. You can inspect it, but ultimately we need to turn to the right. There's no other way that we can go. So once you finish looking at how creepy the statue is, go to the right and kind of make your way around the bushes. This part is quite unclear about where to go because of the camera angles, but as soon as you get far enough, you can see that there's a building. So we want to head over there, and there will be a very short cut scene.
Hey! Can you see me? Are you?
Once you finish the cutscene, go around and enter this building. Just a heads up, this is even more confusing map-wise than the hospital was. So get your camera out and get ready to take a picture of the map on the wall when we enter, because you're definitely going to need it. And this one will be a little bit more difficult to explain because not all of the rooms are labeled on the map. And when you actually pass by them, some of them actually have names and numbers for the room outside the door. So it will be, it'll be a mix between what's outside the door and what you see on the map as to how I refer to it. All the first rooms that we go to, if you see one that says classroom, I'm going to refer to it as the letter and number that's outside the door. But if it has a name on the map here, I will be using that. So the first place we want to go is to the right of the map, and the first door on the left is Teacher 01. This is our save room. It also has a red clock inside. You want to be sure to go and inspect that clock. We will be needing it for a puzzle coming up shortly. You can go into your inventory box, make a save. It has been, last time we saved was Act 2, so it's probably wise to do that now. And whenever you want to throughout the playthrough, of course. Here you want to make sure that you have one slot available in your inventory that holds weapons and consumables, because we will be picking up our 4th weapon very shortly. So when we exit this room in just a moment, we are going to go toward the camera. Keep running down this hallway. You'll see there's a door here. This is the chapel door, and we have to complete a couple of puzzles in order to enter it. The first actual door that you see on the left of the screen, go into it. It is a bathroom. You'll see some very disturbing imagery here. But there's also a blue clock on the wall that you want to inspect. So just so you maybe understand a little better, each act is a different place that is particular to a character in the story and their own particular gloom or their own trauma. So the little girl we just met, this is her version of the gloom. We want to head all the way to the end of the hall. The sign outside says concierge, but the map says janitor. So we want to go into this janitor room and go to the back wall, and you see these papers here. We need to make a hexagon. And then inside of that, you'll see the numbers 413 once you have the pattern right. That is going to be the code that we need to open up this fuse box here. So enter that code, and then we're going to see a color pattern flash. It's red, blue, red, green, blue. Again, I'm going to let that play just so that you know this is very important. You need to remember that color pattern because that is going to allow us to access the next area. So once you have your pattern down, we're going to run all the way back down this hallway, and we're headed for the door that is just past Teacher 01. It does not have a name on the map. It's just a hall. And here you can see there's a colored light over each door. So you want to go through the red door first. Then we want to go through the blue door. Next, we want to go through the red door again. Then we want to go into the green door. And finally, the blue door. Your playthrough may look different than mine. The colors are always different every playthrough. So you may be going in different doors. The colors may be over different doors. It doesn't matter. Just make sure you pick the correct color. So next we want to go into the teacher's lounge. There is a yellow clock inside of the teacher's lounge, and we need that for the puzzle. And just so you know, the teacher's lounge is to the right in that hallway. So the door to the right is the teacher's lounge. Here, there are a couple of doors that are in here, but one of them has the fleshy hole, and Roman will comment that it doesn't look fully formed. And then if you go into the other one, it's a very small bathroom, and he comments that the wall should be deeper. So you can tell that there's something off about these places. You know, the placement of the rooms doesn't exactly make sense. Next, we want to go into Teacher 02, which is just across the hall from the teacher's lounge. Here you can see there's just a computer with a green light, but really what we want is the item inside of this cabinet. You may have to run back to the save room and go to your box if you don't have enough room in your inventory. And finally, we want to go into the headmaster's office, which is the door all the way across. Read the note on the wall here. The red clock is half right. The yellow clock always lies. The blue clock is half wrong. That gives us the code we need to get the shotgun from this grandfather clock. And if you paid attention and wrote down the numbers, you will know that the correct input is 1020. So every number on the yellow clock is wrong. We don't need any of those, and one of the numbers on the yellow clock also coincides with the number on another clock, and that gives you the answer of how to figure this out. So here you want to make sure you pick up the shotgun. That is our fourth weapon. We only have one more to go. Head over to the desk. On top of this book is a set of keys, and we definitely need those keys, so be sure to grab them before we exit this room. Once you're finished in here, we're going to head straight back to Teacher 01, our save room. We need to do a little bit of inventory maintenance, and it's not a bad idea to save as well so that you don't have to repeat this stuff. Here, I'm just going to take a look at this doll on the bench, which we're going to see in a little while. Very much up and moving around. Of course, it wouldn't be a horror game if they didn't do that. Anyway, head over to your box, make any changes that you need to make. I personally prefer to have the melee weapon, the sledgehammer. So I'm just reloading, like making sure that my shotgun is fully loaded, and so is my pistol. And I'm going to be taking out the sledgehammer to use because we do have some enemies coming up, and you do want to make sure to take these enemies out because they will make life very, very hard at the end of the act if we don't take them out now as Roman. So get your gear in order, make your save, and we are going to head out. There's a hall here to the left. We want to run down this hall, and there are two classrooms here. One is the music room, and one is just a classroom across from the music room. Let's go into the classroom first. Here you can see there's a display of the solar system, but there are some planets missing. So we will be hunting down planets. And at the back of the classroom, you want to pay close attention to what is on this projector. We are going to need to know that pattern. There are several patterns like this. Not all of them are useful, but this one is very useful and important. When we walk over to the music room, we can use the keys to unlock the door, and you want to make sure to take out the enemy in this classroom. This is going to be very important for later, and lucky for us, these particular enemies are not too difficult. They're pretty easy to take down. This is for a puzzle later on, this clock. However, we don't really know what that is yet, and it's not a puzzle that Roman will be doing. But do keep it in mind. It's a memory and a tempo puzzle. Also on the wall here, we have another grid pattern, and we need to remember this particular grid pattern. So if you need to take a picture of these grid patterns, go ahead. I personally just did a little sketch in my notebook. However, you can remember it best. When we exit, we go back to the main hall and head back toward the janitor. But we are not going to the janitor. There is an enemy somewhere down this hall. We want to make sure and take him out. It makes life much easier just not having to worry about him. You'll see that it looks different now. The lockers are cleared out and we have more areas to explore. So we want to go to the study hall, which is right past the janitor. In the study hall, we're going to find two important items. So on this desk here, be sure to grab the tape. This is tape number 3. We have only one left to find. And the table directly behind that has a miniature planet, which we're going to need for that solar system. You can exit any way that you like. I just came and exited here. That should tell you something, him never being thirsty. I'm sure you guys figured it out, but you know, just in case you haven't, they're dropping hints. You do see another one of these grid patterns on the floor, but this one does not apply. Because if you see there's an image on top of each grid pattern, what we're looking for is images that when you put them together will create that eye symbol that we've been seeing everywhere. And that one does not. So when we come out from that room with all the books, we're exiting room A04, which connects directly to study hall. But you can see there's A02 on the left. You can go in there, but I am not going to. There's some really graphic imagery in there. I would suggest you go in because it will help you understand the story. However, for the purposes of this video, we don't need to. So you want to go down the hall. There is a door on the left that there's a red light shining on. Enter that room, and when we go in there, it's just a hallway. We want to go through the left door first and go behind by the filing cabinet and be sure to grab the miniature planet out of the filing cabinet. Then go across to the small hall to the other door and we'll be outside. There's a tree with a crack in it, and it also has a miniature planet inside. So now we have all 3 planets that we need to complete the solar system. We also have our 3rd tape that we still need to listen to. So we can go ahead and exit out of this red colored door. And we're going to continue on down this hallway before we head back to the save room. The first door we want to enter is room A08. So if you go to the right, you'll see the door here. This room is important because it has another grid pattern that we need. And also in the back of the class is a green locker that has an item inside. Be sure to grab it and take a picture or draw a sketch of this grid pattern. We have one more grid pattern to go. So when we exit out of A08, we want to go across that hall to A11. This room has yet another grid pattern. That we can see on the chalkboard here. This is the final grid pattern. So now we know exactly which blocks are filled in on the grid. The final room that we'll be going into is A07. So we can head back down the hallway. There's nothing that we particularly need in A07, but there is an enemy in this room that we need to take care of for later. So where the red light's coming out, if you go into the alcove, it's going to be the door across from where the red light's coming out. Be sure to take this enemy out. Don't leave him there because he can cause a lot of problems later on. I'm just making one last sweep through this room to make sure that there are no items, but there are not. I believe A02 has items, but I already explained to you why I'm not going in that room. You'll see sometimes the lockers just close on their own when you pass by. That's a nice little touch. So we're headed back to the music room now. We're going to go ahead and put in all of the miniature planets that we have found. Here I did stop to check this door, but the key to open the chapel door is not on the key ring that the headmaster had, naturally. So we have to do puzzles to figure it out. Here in the classroom across from the music room, we can input all of these little mini planets. And once we do that, the center sun will open and it will give us the key to the chapel. Now we can go ahead and head back to the save room. You see, I turn off my flashlight quite often when I have to focus on something because it's just too bright and it makes it hard to see. So once I come back in here, I'm going to put away my sledgehammer and I'm going to take out my shotgun. We do have somewhat of a boss fight coming up, and at this point it's perfectly safe to completely unload your ammo on the boss because the final weapon is a little bit OP. So you do what you like to do, whatever you're more comfortable with, but I'm going to strictly use my ranged weapons. And make sure to save and play your third tape.
I keep at it, throwing punches and watching him go down over and over. It's not only about justice, it's about understanding, figuring out the limits of our messed up existence. No time for feeling sorry for anyone here. I just want to know how many times this guy needs to kick the bucket before he's completely lost. Swallowed up by this messed up place.
As you can see, as always, Carlos is giving us some insight into the kind of people that are in the gloom. So, our final destination is the chapel. Use your key from your inventory, and once the key is used, we can input those grid symbols that we've been seeing. So, top left corner, down to the third, to the right and down, push that one, then to the right and up to the second one. It opens up the door for us. And as we head over to that fleshy light, we get a cutscene and we enter our boss fight. This boss can be very difficult. I did die several times just because the movement is kind of janky. You want to be sure if you're going to shoot at this creature, whatever it is, it will try to hit you either overhead like that, or it will swipe side to side. If it hits you overhead, it can hit you again when it brings the weapon back up. So be careful of that. You want to make sure that you are dodging and that you are aiming correctly. If I was smart, I would have pushed R3 so that I could target the enemy. But sometimes I am not smart, so I did not. We are going to take care of this enemy. There are no worries. I'm using my pistol first because there is quite a bit of kickback when you use the shotgun, and you do just stand still for a few seconds after shooting, as you can see. But it doesn't take a whole lot. I'm sure you can do this much faster than I did to get rid of this boss. And when the cutscene is over, you'll see that we are now playing as Freya, the little girl that we met before, and her objective is to wake up Roman. So when you exit the chapel, turn left. All those cracks that we've been seeing in the walls, those are for Freya. We can no longer go south, so we have to go north. And we want to enter class A07, go through the crack, and it lets us go into class A06. Here we need to pick up the piece of broken metronome, and you'll see the clock. Inspect it and listen to the tempo. Also be aware of the clock's placement within the 3 circles. So once you're finished with that, go back through the crack and exit back out of the door we came in. Now it's the red door, the door with the red light on it. We want to go through the door that's on the left and enter into this crack in the wall, and it takes us to a set of stairs. Here you can see we are now at the top of the chapel. Just work your way around to the other side. Cross over to the next door and you'll see we are now in the gymnasium. Here we do have a small puzzle having to do with basketball. So in case you're not aware of basketball, these are the rules. Just keep them in mind because this puzzle is pretty much just addition. This just tells you how many points each shot is worth, if you don't know already. And then you see over here, there's a scoreboard and you can interact with it. And it also shows you an image of the 3 dots again with one of them filled in. Be sure to keep that in mind once we solve this puzzle. Now we're going to head around the back into this locker room, and on the bench is a paper that is a breakdown of a game of Team C versus Team B. You can easily figure out what the scoreboard should say to show how the game ended by adding up the scores for each team. And at this point, the only question that we really have is who is the home team and who is the visiting team? And you can figure that out, you know, because it's a 50-50 shot really when you go to put in the scores. However, since I already know, I'm going to share with you what the correct order is. So we want to head over to the scoreboard and we want to put in the final scores. The home team is Team C, who scored 13 points. And the visitors team is Team B, who scored 21 points. So it kind of looks like the home team isn't all that great. We get the metronome weight, and you also must listen to the tempo of the buzzer. So keep that tempo in mind. Now that we are finished with that puzzle, we need to head over to the music room. So just head all the way back the way that we came, down the stairs through the crack and out the door. Once we get back into one of the main halls, you want to head south down toward the camera, take the left. And you can see Freya is much faster, and she also doesn't use up stamina as quickly. It's kind of nice playing as her compared to Roman. He's pretty heavy, heavy to control. So back in the music room, the first thing that we want to do is go to this clock and listen to the tempo. Then you want to head over to this metronome here, and we need to input the pieces from where it was broken. And we need to set the tempo from the 3 different clocks. So you see the buttons at the bottom. You want to make the tempo the same as each clock was. And here I'm just putting arrows to show you where the middle piece is supposed to be to get the correct input. Make sure that the correct light is lit up as well. And once you get it right, the little drawer will open and we get the nurse's office key. So now we have to head all the way back to the gym, which should be pretty easy to remember how to get there because we now have the key to the nurse's office. That's going to be back behind the gym, the door that was next to the locker room. This is a very, very short segment, but honestly, I'm not so great with the tempo puzzles. It took me a few tries to figure it out because I couldn't remember all 3 different tempos. I kind of had to play with it. But playing as Freya is nice because she is very nimble and quick on her feet. It's a nice change after playing as Roman for so long. So use the key on this blue door here, and over in the refrigerator we will find the smelling salts, which we can use to wake up Roman. So just find your way back around to the chapel. Unfortunately, we cannot get down from the top level of the chapel straight to the bottom. We have to go all the way around. If you guys have been watching the cutscenes, then by now you know that Freya is mute. She can hear, but she doesn't speak. She uses her phone to speak for her, and I do find that quite interesting when you relate it to why she's in the gloom in the first place. You guys tell me what you think about that. I think it's very clever and speaks a lot about her own particular trauma. Once we get back into the chapel, use the smelling salts to wake up Roman. and we will again be playing as him. We need to turn around and walk toward the fleshy hole. And you'll see here we get our final weapon. We get the Defender trophy for getting the spear from the last boss that we defeated. This is for collecting all 5 weapons. There are no more to find throughout the game. And the spear is pretty OP, but it does take a little bit of wind up. Once we pass through this portal, we are going to earn the All Aboard trophy, and that's for completing Act 3. Once we come through and begin Act 4, you want to just walk straight to where there's an orange glow. This is going to be our save point for this very short section. You can check out what you have in your inventory if you like. I just kind of moved a few things around, and I won't be needing the sledgehammer again at this point. Really, I can, I'm just reloading, but I can put this away. I'm not going to need it. Here, there is a map. I will be leaving it up for you to look at so that you can get a picture. This is a very short segment, but it can get a little bit confusing. So I do recommend taking a picture. And just so you know, the white parts are not where you walk. The white parts are walls on that particular map, just to clarify. So make your save, and that's going to do it for part 3. Thank you all so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you are finding this helpful. It really will help the channel grow. And I can't wait to see everyone here in part 4. Until then, Khajiit always has wares.